address a little bit is section 2. I'm going to talk about that one first. And it deals with the issue of sea level rise. The reason why this became an issue a couple years ago, the Coastal Resources Commission Science Panel developed a report of sea level rise predictions to provide scientific background for policy considerations. Now, there were two somewhat controversial issues related to this report. Number one, they used tide gauge data from DUC. And those who know the coast of North Carolina quite well and the geology, that part of the state is sinking a little bit. And so therefore in DUC, the sea level rise is about twice what it would be in other parts of the state. But yet they recommended using accelerated rates forward to measure about 1 meter, 39 inches through the year 2100. Now 2100, I don't think any of us will be here in 2100. Now there are some dispute about whether that's good science, whether it's bad science. There are a number of studies that suggest that there isn't sea level rise. In fact, this has been a controversy for some time. In our research, I found this Time magazine cover that said, "How to survive the coming ice age. 51 things you can do to make a difference." April 1977. Sometimes the scientists are right, sometimes they're not. So the point of this bill, the main point here is to have a bill that conforms rulemaking to actual scientific evidence. Now let me list what the bill does not do, because I've seen a lot of erroneous reports in the press. It does not prohibit any state agency from studying sea level rise or educating the public on results of such studies. It does not limit the sources of information available to the Coastal Resource Commission or any other state agency pertaining to sea level rise. And it does not prohibit local government from adopting any rule or ordinance pertaining to sea level rise or developing higher rates or accelerated laws. Local governments are completely left alone in this legislation. It only pertains to state agency and deals directly with the Coastal Resource Commission. This is a big enough issue, in fact, that Carteret County passed a resolution a couple months ago talking about the errors that they felt were in this report from the Coastal Resource Commission Science Committee. And so from a public policy perspective, this bill doesn't go to either extreme. It doesn't say no, there's never going to be any sea level rise. It doesn't say yes, the sea level is going to rise 39 inches, 1 meter by the year 2100. It strikes, I think, a very healthy balance that balances the science, the actual data that we actually have, that we know, with the economic considerations for the coast. And if you're going to assume a sea level rise of 1 meter by the year 2100, think about what impact that has, that kind of accelerated rate, when in fact it may or may not be true. What kind of impact a rule would have on those coastal economies? What does that do when it comes to land use policy? How's that going to affect property values? And because of the effect on property values, that's going to affect tax revenues for those coastal counties. It's going to affect insurance rates, everything else. So this legislation is simply to put in place a mechanism to achieve that desired balance. Now the other provisions of the bill I'll go through quickly. Section 3, it directs the Coastal Resource Commission to study the feasibility of creating an exemption to the Commission's rule changes regarding ocean setback determinations. Section 4 deals with the feasibility of creating a new area of environmental concern for lands adjacent to the mouth of the Cape Fear River. And then Section 5 deals with the feasibility of eliminating the inlet hazard area environmental concern and incorporating appropriate development standards adjacent to the state's developed inlets and so forth. Mostly they're not technical matters. I do have one amendment, Mr. President. It's at the desk, and members should have copies. It deals with Section 4, not Section 2, which deals with sea level rise, but Section 4. And this simply is some clarifying language to eliminate some confusion for the Army Corps of Engineers. And if appropriate, then go ahead and have the date vote on this amendment.
Any discussion debate?
That's all I know. There's an amendment at the desk, and members do have copies.
Clerk, read the amendment.
Senator Rouse votes to amend the bill.
Senator Rouse, recognize to explain the amendment.
The amendment simply, Mr. President, is making some changes to the language to eliminate some confusion for the Army Corps of Engineers. It deals with Section 4, pertaining to a study.
Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the question for the citizen passage of amendment 1, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote nay. If I second the allowed to vote affirmative. Mayor DeBerger. Aye. 47 having voted affirmative, 1 in the negative, amendment 1 is passed. Now the bill is
Mr. President.
Excuse me, Senator Connell, for purpose to run.
Oh, yes, sir.
Amendment 1 is passed. Now the bill is back before us as amended on the second reading. Any further discussion debate? Senator Brown, for purpose to rise.
To debate the bill.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think Senator Rouser touched on some of the issues that affect the coast and touched on different studies and I guess arguments amongst those studies. I've got one here, just an example of how confusing this can be. At Wilmington, there's been a 77-year sea level study, and the average sea level from this study shows that over 77 years, there's been a 2 millimeter rise per year, or 8 inches in a century, and over the last 20 years, no sea level rise. So I think that'll just give you an idea of how conflicting these studies are when it comes to sea level rise on the coast. Senator Rouser also touched on what's happening on the coast as far as rules and regulations go. I can tell you, in my county, the stormwater rules, which today I'm stringent now. Well, I'll just give you an example. I developed 9 acres of land. I had to build an 1.5-acre holding pond on 9 acres of land, commercial property. So that just give you an idea of how far it's gone as far as stormwater rules. There's a lot of property now on the coast that's unbuildable because of new stormwater rules. And it's becoming, I think, really tough on any kind of development on the coast, and I think it will affect economic development on the coast in the future if we don't start looking some common sense into some of this rulemaking. When we take some of these studies and try to apply what might happen 88 years from now and try to apply rules today, it just makes it difficult to do anything on the coast. I think this bill puts some common sense back in what's happening and vote for support.
Any discussion debate? Hearing none, question for the citizen passage of the Senate Committee 17 House Bill 819 is amended on the second reading. All those in favor, vote aye. Those opposed, vote nay. By second bill, I can vote affirmative. Neighman. Order amendment. 35, having been affirmative, 12, and negative, the Senate Committee 17 House Bill 819 amended has passed its second reading and without objection. Go to 39.
Carolina General Assembly enacts.
Further discussion debate. Hearing none, question for citizen passage of Senate Committee 17 House Bill 819 on its third reading. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate Committee 17 House Bill 819 amended has passed its third reading. The amendment will be engrossed, will be sent to the House and issue concurrence in the Senate Committee substitute this amendment. House Bill 952, first reading.